Northampton has signed onto the declaration to bring the war dollars home, and we wondered how that translates into actions taken or not taken to make that into a reality. As we all know, money continues to be scarce for everyone, from the schools to road repairs, and we also know that cuts and level spending or no spending takes a toll on our quality of life. Not just right now, it carries reduced possibilities into the future, especially in areas for our children. There is money, but it's being spent on the military and on war. How can ordinary citizens and how can a small city like Northampton realistically affect this federal spending? How do we put teeth into the war dollars resolution passed by the City Council? These were the questions that came up on Mother's Day. We don't have any answers, but we have some ideas. It will take time to consider this seriously. But it did occur to us that perhaps the city would create a Mother's Day committee to give due consideration to these questions and make some proposals. We hope to speak to the mayor about this in the next few weeks. In the mid-'80s, when Dave Musanti was the mayor some time ago, and maybe under Mary Ford, although I'm not sure, there was an administrative assistant. In Dave's time, it was Marcia Burek, whose job really was to listen to citizen suggestions such as these, to empower people to pursue their ideas and see how the city might be able to help. You were met at City Hall with this yes, good idea, form a committee, and good luck attitude. This is how we got the child care center at the PVTA bus garage, which some of you may not know about. We walked into Marcia Burek's office one day with concerns about child care in the city. We formed a child care committee and we went to work. Marcia thought of the bus garage. There was a grant, as well as I think some necessity for a payback to the city for the building permit or whatever for the new garage. I don't remember the details, but you can still see the results of this collaboration in the industrial park. Providing childcare isn't necessarily a city's business, but is definitely important to working families in any city. Mothers and children and child care workers brought this concern to the city, not to solve the problem, but to work with us. Stopping war is not also a city's business, but it is another issue that concerns all of us as well, especially, I would say, mothers. I see it blinking. It isn't always about money, but I think money spent on such a position like the administrative assistant, but it was really more than that, one that welcomes citizens and their ideas and helps to implement or facilitate them in any way, is money well spent. It may be more important, I think, than an economic development position because it harnesses the energy of the city, the ideas, the expertise of people in the valley. So we get more participation, more democracy, and I think we get a better city and a better quality of life for everyone. Thank you for letting me go over.
Okay, thank you very much. And actually, it was somewhat helpful because it got us to 7:05, so we could actually start the regular meeting and not have an awkward pause.
I know someone was donating their time.
So is there anyone else who wishes to speak in public comment? Okay, so hearing none, I will then open the regular meeting of the City Council that was posted for 7:05, and I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilor Adams?
Here.
Councilor Dwight? Here. Councilor Freeman Daniels?
Here.
Councilor Labarge?
Present.
Councilor Murphy?
Here?
Councilor Spector?
Here.
Here.
Councilor Tacey and Councilor Carney said their regrets they had personal matters to attend to this evening. The first item on your agenda is the approval of minutes of May 3rd, 2012.
Move to approve.
Second. There's a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the May 3rd minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so those are accepted. I have a, under proclamations, resolutions, awards, and recognition, I have a late file proclamation that I would like to present, and I would ask for a suspension of Rule 38.
Move to suspend Rule 38.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. This is a proclamation in honor of Public Works Week, which is May 20th through the 26th of 2012. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewer, streets, stormwater, parks, and solid waste, And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform, now, therefore, I, David J. Narkowitz, Mayor of the City of Northampton, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th through 26th, 2012, as National Public Works Week in the City of Northampton, and I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I have set my hand and affixed the seal of the City of Northampton. And I know that our Department of Public Works Director, Mr. Huntley, is here, and I would like to recognize him and anyone else and present information, present this to you officially.
Great,
So,
thank you very much. John Carver with me here. John's our chief operator at the wastewater treatment plant. As you recall, 4 years ago, the DPW started an effort to make this annual event where we could be recognized by the citizens of Northampton. National Public Works Week is a celebration of the tens of thousands of men and women in North America who provide and maintain infrastructure and services collectively known as public works. Instituted as a public education campaign by the American Public Works Association in 1960, the National Public Works Week calls attention to the importance of public works in community life. The week seeks to enhance the prestige of the often unsung heroes of our society, the professionals who serve the public good every day with quiet dedication. Your strong support will only provide and enhance our opportunity for the public to learn more about the essential services that we provide. Thank you.
And I also wanted to note that there's a poster honoring Public Works Week, which is on display in the mayor's office.
That's correct.
Which she provided, so. It's actually of the Golden Gate Bridge, so we get lots of comments about that, why we have a poster of the Golden Gate Bridge in our office. So I've educated a lot of people on Public Works Week. Thank you very much. Thanks for your work. Thank you, John.
Thank you for your support, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is a resolution, and this is a second reading. This is upon the recommendation of the mayor. Whereas the City of Northampton receives Community Development Block Grant funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and whereas the city's entitlement grant amount for the program year 29, commencing on July 1st, 2012, will be approximately $588,403, and whereas a needs assessment and review of the draft action plan has been conducted over the course of 2 public hearings in order to solicit public comment on utilization of CDBG resources, and whereas requests for proposals have been issued to identify programs and service providers to undertake eligible CDBG activities, and whereas an action plan has been developed to address needs within the city which the CDBG program can address, now therefore be it resolved that the Northampton City Council endorses the CDBG Year 29 Action Plan to be submitted by Mayor David J. Narkowitz to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the program year beginning July 1st, 2012.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there a second? Is there any further discussion or comment on this? Again, just for the public, this is these are recommendations to me on how our federal allotment of CDBG funds will be spent in the upcoming year. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. That's unanimous. Certainly, and I just pointed out to you this evening that with Councilor Tacey here, I would like to appoint Councilor Labarge to the enrollment committee for this evening's meeting with Councilor Adams. Okay, so the next item on the agenda are 1-minute announcements. Are there any 1-minute announcements? Okay. Counselor, could you?
Yeah, the Northampton Historical Society is hosting the Florence Community Band on this upcoming Wednesday, 6 days from today, at 6:30 for a rendition of historic songs from Northampton's past and so on.
Thank you.
It's free.
Any other announcements? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to appointments, elections, and public hearings. Let's see.
John Kelly.
Okay, so these are 3 reappointments, and they come to you as, okay, so the first one is the reappointment, and this is to John Kelly from the Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School as its representative to the Northampton Energy and Sustainability Commission, with a term to expire May 2014. The next is appointment of Debin Bruce to the Planning Board as its representative to the Community Preservation Committee, and this is replacing Catherine Baker, and the term will be to expire in March of 2013. And the final one is a reappointment to the Recreation Commission, Glenn Conley of 49 Platinum Circle, Florence, a term to expire June 2015. Counselor Labarge.
Yes, on Debin Bruce. It says appointment here,
Is this a point of information?
the reappointment.
Well, actually, she's being appointed to fill the seat of, as it said, of Catherine Baker, who's stepping down.
She's stepping
From the
down.
planning board.
Okay.
And she's been the planning board's appointee, so that's why
Okay.
they're calling it an appointment.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve all 3, and I want to suspend the Rule 30 so that they do not have to come to appointments and evaluations.
Okay.
And I also want to talk a little bit about Debin Bruce.
Okay, sure, if we could just do the.
Okay.
I'll second.
So
Okay.
first, there's been a
Thank you.
motion made and seconded to suspend Rule 30. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then you're making a motion, and are you seconding?
seconding that.
To refer, to approve these.
To approve them and not send them to committee.
Exactly. So, and then you have a question.
Yes, on Debin Bruce.
Yes.
I had talked with Wayne Biden yesterday in regards to Debin and highly recommends her going onto this committee. She's been with him, he thought maybe possibly 3 to 4 years, but highly recommended.
Great. Any other comments about any of these? And I can say that I've served with Mr. Kelly on the Energy and Sustainability Commission, and he does a great job representing Smithfield on that. Okay, so any other discussion? All those in favor of approving these 3, well, 2 reappointments and 2 reappointments and 1 appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Those are approved. The next these are new appointments, and I assume you would like me to take them as a group?
Please.
For referral
Please.
purposes?
Take them as a group.
Okay, so the first set is to the Arts Council. I have Joshua Bedell of 264 Riverside Drive in Florence, a term from June 2012 to June 2015. Sarah Marcus, 264 Riverside Drive, Florence, term June 2012, 2015. Jan Ruby, 51 Fairview Avenue, Northampton, a term June 2012 to June 2015. The next is a new appointment to the Conservation Commission, Cynthia White of 55 North Loudville Road in Florence. The term would be from March 2012 to March 2015. To the License Commission, Brian Campidelli of 223 Cardinal Way in Florence, a term from June 2012 to June 2018. And to the Planning Board, as an associate member, Ann DeWitt Brooks of 20 Bridge Road, number 1 in Florence, and the term would be May 2012 to May 2015.
Move to refer to appointments and evaluations.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And then we also have, let's see, now, this is the late file on the license renewal. Okay, I also have some late files, which are, again, these are appointments to city boards, committees, and commissions. And these are coming back to us from the Committee on Appointments and Evaluation, whose meeting on this occurred after the agenda was produced. So I'd first need to have a motion to suspend rule for the late file.
Move to suspend Rule 30.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so I'll now read through the appointments that are coming back to you from the Committee on Appointments and Evaluation. The first is to the Arts Council, Eric Olson of 201 Park Hill Road, Northampton, a term of May 2012 to May 2015. To the Board of Registrars, Charles Klepacki, 26 Ferry Avenue, Northampton, a term of April 2012 to April 2016. To the Council on Aging, John J. Kaczynski Jr., 39 Lino Terrace in Florence, a term of April 2012 to April 2014. To the Housing Partnership, Patty McGill, 103 South Street in Northampton, a term of May 2012 to May 2015. To the Recreation Commission, Dan Smith, 597 West Hampton Road in Florence, a term of June 2012 to June 2015. And Thomas Dunphy, 6 Chesterfield Road in Leeds, a term June 2012 to June 2015. And finally, to the Transportation and Parking Commission, Richard E. Cooper, 136 South Main Street in Florence, a term of May 2012 to May 2015. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Second. I would then defer to the chair or other members of the committee for any
I'll
comments.
just make one comment after a couple of comments which we heard last time from Counselor Daniels to add some of the comments from our meetings, and to do it in a timely fashion so they come forward in such a way that even though we haven't approved the minutes yet, you'll see that there's a new format here. And so I hope this goes some ways to, I think it was a legitimate thing you were saying since you didn't have the notes, but I would hope in combination that the counselors, when people are referred to committee, let me just say again, if you could read the application even before we meet in the committee, which is the second Monday of the month, that would be really helpful. And we could get some of your comments from the reading of their applications. And most of the people who apply actually write rather extensive applications, which that's really what we base our judgment on.
Counselor?
So I want to extend a special thank you to, I think it was Councilor Schwartz who took the minutes, for doing them, just looks like last 4 days ago or something like that, and for preparing them so that I could review them, that everyone can review them. And this is really all I was talking about at the last meeting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so is there any other discussion of these appointments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approving these appointments, say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. I also have a late file on a license renewal, and I would ask for a suspension of Rule 38.
Move to suspend Rule 38.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, this is a license renewal for Mystical Thrift and Consignment Shop, consignment on 30 Maple Street in Florence. And we believe you have the licensing material that came to us, and the forms from the city clerk regarding taxes and personal property taxes. So is there any discussion on this? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the
Move to
license.
approve.
Actually, I'd just like to make a comment about the suspension of rules for late files.
Okay, do we do a, could there be a second for purposes of
Second.
discussion, or
Well, we're still on the late file point
Right.
anyway, so,
we actually voted on the late file? We voted.
We suspended the Rule
Sorry.
38.
yes, okay, so I'll second for the purpose of discussion. And it it should be noted that there's an inordinate amount of late files, which always makes me very nervous, of course, when we do late files, because it's not posted in the agenda. Public doesn't know. It has the opportunity to come and contest these issues, or at least testify against them. I mean, the ones that I feel relatively comfortable with these, although it ultimately shouldn't be my decision, but there are a lot of things that clearly we're going to have to work on as we do the shakeout here, as we try to figure out what's the best way for these things to come before Mary, so Mary knows how to process them and get them to us in time to make the agenda. And this is not her fault. None of these late files are her fault. So it's just a caveat more than anything else. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And again, I don't know the background on this particular one, other than I think that it was an issue of someone's license, not wanting them to have to wait an additional 2 weeks.
Right,
so-
and they've been serving in good service with us.
Yeah, so, but the point is well taken, yeah. Any other questions or comments about this license renewal? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of renewing the license, say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Certainly, sure, we can certainly do that. Just a suggestion was made that we do have a presentation scheduled for later this evening in the agenda of the Veterans Council, and the question was, would the council want to adjust its agenda to accommodate them prior to finance?
Yes.
If that requires a motion, I'd so move.
I second it.
Okay, great. Well, I'll just accept it as the council wanting to do that. So we're going to actually now move to the presentation phase, and we will recognize Brad LeVay and Tom Pease from the Veterans Council of Northampton.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Brad LeVay, and I am the president of the Veterans Council. Tonight, I brought Tom with me, and he is our publicity officer, and he'll update us on the parade, Memorial Day Parade. I'm gonna give him-
Thank you, Brad. Good evening, Your Honor, Mayor, and council members. My name is Tom Pease. I'm the newly elected, appointed publicity officer, so you'll be seeing much more of me during these meetings so we can keep everybody in the community informed as to our Veterans Council activities. Upcoming is the Memorial Day weekend. The first service we're going to have is going to be at the Leeds Memorial, or Veterans Memorial at the Leeds Elementary School. It's going to be held on May the 27th at 1 o'clock. That's Sunday afternoon. It is just a memorial service. There's no parade in Leeds. This year, we're honored to have as a guest speaker Leeds girl, who is also a United States Army veteran, Gloria Tuperkayas. So I'm sure she'll enlighten us with a lot of her female friends and counterparts that she met in the service and what have you. So it should be rather entertaining, and Gloria is a trooper. She's really, really dedicated to the veterans, and especially the female veterans. She jumps in with both feet, and I hope that a lot of us here, all of us, can go and enjoy her speech. The Florence Memorial Day Parade is the following day. It's on May the 28th. A little side note here on the Memorial Day Parade in Florence. It is the longest continuously run Memorial Day Parade held on Memorial Day in the United States. I don't have the exact dates, but all the history buffs tell me that it goes way back. And also, this never stopped for rain or snow or what have you. Approximately 12 years ago, it was a torrential downpour. A lot of the participants didn't show up, but the Veterans Council got together with the Color Guard, the VFW Post 806 in Florence, along with the police department. They held a parade, in a torrential downpour, and they had a ceremony, a small ceremony, so it kept the drive alive. You know, it's the longest continuously run parade on Memorial Day in the United States. It steps off, again, at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be consisting of the color guard from the VFW. Northampton High School Band will be attending. We'll have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts there. The American Legion Riders will be there. Lions Club, of course, Northampton's finest, the police department, DPW, Red Cross, and the Florence Community Band, along with a lot of other marchers and local people. After the parade, we will form up again at the cemetery on Park Street this year. And on behalf of the Veterans Council, all members of the participating council, I want to thank the Honorable Mayor Dave Narkowitz for being our guest speaker this year. It's truly an honor to have you there. We're also at that ceremony, we will be reading the deceased veterans from the past year. Last year, I believe it was a little over 100 that we read. And it's a solemn moment. You know, every year we lose more and more veterans, but every year the parade seems to be getting bigger and bigger too. So I welcome all of you. I welcome the whole community to come out, and I hope it's sunny, but we're going to have the parade no matter what. So that's about it for now. Any questions?
Looking forward to seeing you.
Oh yeah, we'll be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move back to the regular order of the agenda, and I will recess the regular meeting of the City Council and move into Finance Committee and ask the clerk to call the roll of the Finance Committee.
Mayor Echols,
Present?
Counselor Dwight,
Here?
Counselor Labarge,
Present?
Counselor Murphy.
Here.
Okay, we have a series of financial orders before you. What's that? Oh. That's okay. These are for the Community Preservation Act, and they are recommendations coming from myself and the Community Preservation Committee. And so we'll take the first one. Upon recommendation of Mayor David J. Narkowitz and the Community Preservation Committee, ordered that, whereas the Northampton Office of Planning and Development submitted an application for Community Preservation Act funding for rehabilitation to the Arch Bridge over Beaver Brook, and whereas the project advances the goals of the Open Space Recreation and Multi-Use Trail Plan and the Sustainable Northampton Plan and the Northampton CPA Plan, whereas repair and rehabilitation are needed to ensure that it is safe for pedestrians and bicycles and to ensure that this historic structure remains for future generations, whereas the project serves a public purpose by preserving a structure of important historic significance, whereas the Office of Planning and Development's application states that, quote, "the city will inspect the bridge annually and perform ongoing maintenance as necessary," unquote, to keep the bridge in good condition, whereas the applicant will make reasonable efforts to place a historic preservation restriction on the bridge, and whereas on April 18th, 2012, the Northampton Community Preservation Committee voted unanimously to recommend $104,000 in Community Preservation Act funds be used to support this project, now therefore be it ordered that $104,000 be appropriated from Community Preservation Act funding to the Office of Planning and Development for the Beaver Brook Bridge project, and that the grantee meets the conditions approved by the Community Preservation Committee, the mayor, and city council. Specifically, $94,650 is appropriated from the CPA budgeted reserve, and $9,350 is appropriated from the CPA historical budgeted reserve. Is there a motion? Yes.
Move to approve.
Is there a second and
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded.
I move to recognize Sarah LaValle from planning to answer questions.
Okay, is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Sarah LaValle from the Office of Planning and Development.
Good evening.
Great.
Sir.
If you just want to give us any kind of a quick thumbnail, or if counselors have questions about this particular project.
Just a quick thumbnail of this project. It's to fund historic rehabilitation of the the arch bridge over Beaver Brook in Leeds, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a little bit hidden. It looks very, very similar to the arch bridge on Arch Street in Leeds.
Council?
That bridge is what, probably way back in the 1800s?
I think around 19.
That's what my husband was saying, because he was born and raised in Leeds. I've seen that bridge several times. And is that because we are connecting the trails and then be able to go over the bridge, or?
That's a part of it. This project is under both the historic CPA category and the recreation CPA category. Obviously, the bridge is a very important historic resource, but there is a multi-use trail that goes over the bridge as well.
Could you describe to us where it is? Because most of the public would have no idea where this bridge is.
All right, if you go, the best way to see without having to walk at all is to go on River Road and look over the Mill River to your right, and you can get a good view of it that way. And if you want to take a little walk, park at the end of Grove Avenue in Leeds and take the trail. But you have to really watch where you're stepping, because it's hard to tell you're actually on a bridge.
And
You would know you were in the water if you weren't on the bridge, right?
Well, it's, there's a lot of vegetation and growth around it, so it's hard to tell where the bridge is unless you're really looking for it.
Okay. Are there other questions for Ms. LaValle about this project? Again, okay, so then the question before the Finance Committee is whether to recommend this project to the full City Council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that one is recommended to council. And I have a second one here. This is upon the recommendation of Mayor David J. Narkowitz and the Community Preservation Committee, ordered that whereas the Northampton Conservation Commission submitted a CPA application for purchase of up to 87 acres, which will fill a gap in the Broad Brook Greenway / Fitzgerald Lake Conservation Area, and whereas this is an environmentally important location, and whereas the project meets the goals of the Sustainable Northampton Plan, Northampton Community Preservation Plan, and Open Space, Recreation, and Multi-Use Trail Plan to protect open space and provide for passive recreation, and whereas the CPA application was premised on providing opportunities for trail linkages and access points at the discretion of the Conservation Commission, and whereas pedestrian access from Coles Meadow Road will be provided, and whereas on April 18th, 2012, the Northampton Community Preservation Committee voted unanimously to recommend $290,000 in Community Preservation Act funds be used to support this project, and whereas on March 1st, 2012, City Council voted to authorize the purchase of this property, and that authority remains in effect, now therefore be it ordered that $290,000 be appropriated from Community Preservation Act funding to the Northampton Conservation Commission for the Broad Brook Gap project, and that the grantee meets the conditions improved by the Community Preservation Committee, the mayor, and City Council. Specifically, $290,000 is appropriated from the CPA budgeted reserve. Is there a motion in finance?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Second, okay. Would you like to give us a similar description of this project?
This is a priority project of both the Conservation Commission and the Broad Brook Coalition, and as the resolution states, it'll fill a really important gap in the Broad Brook Greenway.
Okay. Are there questions on this in Finance Committee or from any counselors? Counselor?
This is the section of land that is on Coles Meadow Road, is that right?
It is, yes.
And I remember the discussion was what was going to happen to the property that has frontage on that road. Do we know anything more than what we knew on March 1?
The application to the Community Preservation Committee reserved the right, if necessary, to do a limited development project along the frontage and preserve the most ecologically important land in the back, but only if needed. We're currently applying for other grants and looking for other sources of funding, and that will only be a scenario if none of those other grants are received.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
No. I do.
Yes, Counselor?
So Sarah, by us counselors voting on this, this will likely help the Conservation Commission, right, to hopefully get some state funding out there also?
Definitely. This will be used as a planned match for a federal grant that we just completed the application for, as well as the land grant, which the Conservation Commission has been really successful with in the past.
So this is definite top priority for the year. right?
Yes, absolutely.
Counselor?
I have a question. I'm looking through these things, and I'm just wondering, it seems like we have less information than in the past on these things. For example, we don't even have the breakdown of how the CPC voted on these things. Is there any reason for that?
Actually, the
Because this is all I have. I mean,
resolution says that it was a unanimous vote.
okay, but we usually get more than just, just, this is an overview and the order. We usually get something else. We usually get other information from CPC. I mean, that includes their breakdown, which you just said is already in here.
Yeah.
But we usually get more than this. Is there any reason why we have less information than we've typically gotten in the past?
I'm not sure of that. I know that the applications are available on the website, on the CPC website. I'm not sure if those have been circulated as part of your packet, the actual application.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
what I'm talking about.
So there was a summary, I guess there may have been a summary page.
We used to do a cover letter for each application, but that got to be a little redundant. It didn't seem very helpful for anyone. So there's not actually any less information, but it may be less pieces of paper.
Well, this overview says, this overview essentially says, here's what we've chosen, here's the amounts, I hope you like the overview. We've gotten more than that in the past.
That's it.
Well, we can ask that we look back on what was provided in the past.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
What's that? We can get it for second reading as well. 'cause
Yeah. I
tonight
would appreciate
was
that.
the
Thank you.
first reading, so we can try to
That's true.
figure out what that is.
Yeah, I can provide any additional information on
Okay.
those.
Thank you.
It's worth noting that, of course, on this project, we did have an extensive conversation on this project, but not on the disposition, the debate, discussion at the CPC. So I think on this project, we understand, we know the location, we know the layout, we know the urgency and the priority. But to Councilor Adams' point, we don't know really much more other than that it's met with approval. And this, of course, is an extension of other conversations that we've had relative to these things about how much information we have providing our vote. So I don't think I think it's a reasonable request, and it'd be great to have it, something a little more expansive, if that's possible, Sarah.
Sure, definitely.
For the next reading. Thank you.
Yes,
The reason I mention that is I don't want anyone to presume that the council is voting in some abject ignorance, that we are cognizant and aware of the circumstances, the parameters of this proposal. So it's not like we're just rubber stamping anything, just
Okay.
unless there be confusion.
Counselor Freeman Daniel.
I agree. I mean, we did discuss this much more a few months ago, but it does seem sometimes we do get a lot of these CPAs applications at the same time. So sometimes it's nice to have a little bit more.
One other suggestion, just to follow on something you mentioned before, is there are minutes when the CPC has its meeting to approve this slate of projects. Does that all happen at one meeting typically?
There is the last meeting will give a really good synopsis of what the projects are. So I can provide that, and also
Those
the cover
minutes
letter about
might
the
accompany
application.
these orders just as a way to give people more of the context of.
Sure, definitely. I'll get that for the next council meeting.
Counselor.
Mayor, I would highly suggest, I think the minutes will tell us exactly what we're looking for, and that if we can make it mandatory through Sarah to tell CPC to have the minutes, to come forth with what we're going to go ahead and vote on. And I have to agree with Councilor Adams, because I remember last year, it was broken down and specifically stated how they were using that and what they were using it for. Frank Oakman.
They may have to be draft minutes depending on the timing, but they can, as long as the minutes are available. Okay, so are there any questions back to the substance of this particular, in the Finance Committee? If not, all those in favor of this, recommending this to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that one will go forward to the council. The next item is upon the recommendation of Mayor David J. Narcoitz and the Community Preservation Committee, ordered that whereas the Northampton Conservation Commission submitted an application for Community Preservation Act funding for the Conservation Fund, and whereas the fund makes possible increased acquisition of protection of open space parcels in Northampton by supporting fast action on time-sensitive real estate opportunities, and whereas the project may leverage additional public and/or private funds, whereas the project meets the goals of the Northampton Sustainability Plan for protection of open space and agricultural lands, whereas the applicant has used these funds effectively in the past towards the protection of several hundred acres of open space, reflecting the goals established by the Community Preservation Committee, and whereas on April 18, 2012, the Northampton Community Preservation Committee voted unanimously to recommend $50,000 in Community Preservation Act funds be used to support this project, now therefore be it ordered that $50,000 be appropriated from the Community Preservation Act funding to the Northampton Conservation Fund, and that the grantee meet the conditions approved by the Community Preservation Committee, the mayor, and city council. Specifically, $50,000 is appropriated from the CPA budgeted reserve.
Move acceptance.
Second.
Okay. Would you like to give some background on this?
Sure. This is basically a recapitalization of the fund that's used by the Conservation Commission for time-sensitive acquisitions. So if we need a survey or some legal costs or something like that in a time-sensitive manner, then this fund is available. And the current funds have all been allocated to existing and planned projects, so it's basically empty.
Are there any questions about this, Counselor?
It should be mentioned additionally that these are, and it's in the language, these are appropriate uses of, by the enabling language of legislation. This is appropriate use of the funding to facilitate your work, your administrative work towards preserving the land, as has been mandated by CPA.
Yeah, and conservation funds were established in the Conservation Commission enabling legislation, so that it's really clear that this is an allowable use.
And you guys all, you abide by all the criteria that are laid out by the enabling language?
Yes, definitely.
Are there any other questions from councilors? Councilor Freeman Daniels.
It's on them if they don't, right? I mean, the Conservation Commission has its own.
That is on
its own
yes.
land, right? It's not on.
It's on us as if we approve it, and we knew they didn't.
Oh, right. Well,
Any other questions or comments about this particular project? Okay, so again, in Finance Committee, all those in favor of recommending to the City Council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And then the final order is, upon the recommendation of Mayor David J. Narcoitz and the Community Preservation Committee, ordered that whereas the Hampshire Council of Governments submitted a CPA application for the first phase of historical rehabilitation of the Hampshire County Courthouse, and whereas the project provides a broad public benefit to the citizens of Northampton and the region, and whereas the project serves a public purpose by preserving a structure and downtown green space of important historic significance, and whereas the Council of Governments will provide a conservation restriction to the city of Northampton on the courthouse lawn, and whereas on April 18, 2012, the Northampton Community Preservation Committee voted unanimously to recommend $100,000 in Community Preservation Act funds be used to support this project, now therefore be it ordered that $100,000 be appropriated from Community Preservation Act funding to the Northampton Conservation Commission for the Hampshire County Courthouse renovation, that the grantee meets the conditions approved by the Community Preservation Committee, the mayor, and city council. Specifically, $100,000 is appropriated from the CPA budgeted reserve, and that the city of Northampton is authorized to acquire for conservation, passive recreation, and historic preservation purposes any easement and any conservation and/or historic preservation restriction as defined in MGL Chapter 184, Section 31 of the general laws in the historic courthouse and/or courthouse lawn consistent with the Community Preservation Act, and that City Council approves such easements and conservation and historic preservation restrictions. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Would you like to?
All right, so these are funds, as the order says, that will contribute towards the first phase of rehabilitation to the courthouse. It's a really big project, and this won't cover the first phase in its entirety and certainly not the whole project, but it's a step towards that. Funding is being sought from all the communities in Hampshire County. I think Goshen and Southampton have committed funds already in addition to Northampton. And the reason for the potential conservation restriction is because the application highlighted the historic significance of not only the courthouse, but actually the lawn itself. And since the courthouse building already has a restriction held by Mass Historic, the Council of Governments was very willing to place an additional restriction on the lawn so that it couldn't be developed into something else.
Counselor?
Sir, conservation restrictions also apply to the state, and the state so far has not swathed themselves in glory with some of the additions that they've added to the courthouse and normally in violation of our permitting. Do they need to abide by the conditions in terms of conservation restrictions?
Anything that's placed on it now, they definitely would need to, yeah. The Council of Governments is the owner of the old courthouse building.
Right.
The newer courthouse building is in a different ownership and different situation.
Right. I just didn't, the state has certain latitudes that they enjoy that other communities don't, and they can at times bypass all zoning restrictions. And, I mean, of course, you know, another edifice is the hall records, the deeds, the modified parking garage, and to be honest, even looked better when it was a parking garage. But so my only concern is that we put on this restriction, this CR on this in the comfort and hope that it's preserved, and only to find the state decided that it would look nice cinder blocked or something. I don't know.
Since the Council of Governments is the actual owner of that lawn area, then they would certainly need to abide by this, and any subsequent owner would have to as well. So this would be a deed writer that would be permanent.
Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
thank you, thanks.
Counselor Freeman Daniels?
Hi, thank you. I think there are two questions. There's one question, I just want to reiterate or re-ask it. The state through the legislature can undo any conservation restriction, isn't that right?
With a 2/3 vote, possibly, of the state legislature.
So, yeah,
I'd have to look
it's
into it for
conceivable.
sure.
Okay, but there are some hurdles.
Yeah, very high. And
But it would also be enforceable by the city, so that would be a sticky situation, definitely.
well, let's hope that it doesn't ever happen. But I do have a question, actually, because I'm curious about how big the lawn is. I mean, how far does it wrap? Does it go all the way back to?
Definitely includes a portion of the King Street frontage, but I don't know the actual dimensions of it. I could look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, I just, obviously, the building is historic, and the lawn, you can't preserve the building without also preserving a good portion of the lawn for the same historic reasons. I just want to be sure that such a conservation restriction wouldn't get in the way of some chance of developing the back parcel or part of the back that obviously is much less attractive and much less historic.
Yeah, the details are still yet to be worked out between the ultimate holder of the conservation restriction, which is probably the Conservation Commission, and the Council of Governments, but we would take those things into account. And there is also a preservation restriction on the building itself that's held by Mass Historic, which already limits the changes that can be made to the exterior.
Right, that's what I mean. What I want to know is does the lawn extend beyond where the building is? Does the lawn go further?
The original building.
Yeah, than the original building. Does it, so in that respect, in a sense, a conservation restriction on the lawn, if the lawn was larger than if the lawn was larger than if the lawn was part of a parcel and the building is much smaller, obviously, then it could restrict some other kind of development for the back piece or something like that, and that is concerning to me.
Yeah, we would definitely look into that, and I take that into account when drafting the conservation restriction, and we certainly wouldn't include anything that the Council of Governments wasn't comfortable with. But I'll double check for second reading, but I believe the shape of the parcel is
Okay.
uniform.
Yeah, I just didn't check before today, but that is a concern for me.
Counselor Murphy?
I believe once upon a time, because they built a bridge between the two, and I believe once upon a time there was a street that ran between those buildings. So I'm thinking that the original parcel that the courthouse is on doesn't get anywhere near the hotel or, and I don't know, when the city would have discontinued the street, but I think it doesn't go so far behind the building that it would compromise much of any future
I
development.
think it was a county parcel, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was a county street.
Well, it might have been a county street.
Yeah.
But it's gone now. Remember about it.
We can
So the
certainly get
county.
you a deed or a plot plan to show you the parameters of it. Yeah. Are there any other questions about this particular project? And again, they are approaching other communities in Hampshire County for funding through CPA. So I'm just glad that Northampton's taking a leadership role in the effort, so appreciate your consideration of this. So in Finance Committee, all those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So the question is, these will come out to the full council during the regular meeting. Do you wish to have Ms. LaValle stay for any questions during that? Okay, so thank you very much, Sarah, for being here this
Thank you.
evening. Okay. I have a couple of financial orders that are going to be coming to the city council as a late file this evening, and they are of an emergency nature, both literally and figuratively here as you read them. And so I need to, I guess I want to bring them up in the Finance Committee in anticipation of them bringing them forward and asking the council for its approval for a late file. So I'm going to bring them up here in Finance Committee. Upon the recommendation of the mayor and the Finance Committee, ordered that, whereas on August 26, 2011, the city activated its Emergency Operations Center in response to warnings of damage and flooding from then Hurricane Irene, which was later downgraded to Tropical Storm Irene. And whereas on August 26, 2011, the mayor declared a state of emergency due to damage and flooding caused by Tropical Storm Irene. And whereas a regional emergency shelter was established at Smith Vocational Agricultural School to assist those impacted by the storm. And whereas the city will incur liabilities in excess of the appropriations made for several city departments, therefore, pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 31 of the Massachusetts General Laws, the Northampton City Council approves the expenditure of funds for the purpose of protecting the city and making repairs during and after Tropical Storm Irene in excess of the funds appropriated for such purposes in FY12.
Move approval?
Second. Is there a second?
Second it.
Okay.
Don't we have to suspend the rule? This is a late
well-
one.
Well, in the regular meeting you will, but in Finance Committee, we don't really have that as a rule, so I'm bringing it forward in Finance, and again, the council has the option if it would like to defer this. This is one of two somewhat identical orders, and and essentially, as you know, these were two events, this one and the one that we'll discuss next, were events where we qualified to apply for aid through FEMA, and because we had declared a state of emergency, and we have applications pending, and we are anticipating funding coming to the city to pay for those projects. And so what we're essentially, in checking with the Department of Revenue, they have issued an advisory on how to deal with this sort of an issue. And essentially, they are asking us to use this enabling legislation, have the city council use this enabling legislation to essentially allow us to expend the funds now, knowing that we may have to deficit spend, but the money will then replenish those accounts. So that's sort of the framework, and I can ask the finance director to give, she actually has been on the phone with DOR this week, trying to figure out how exactly to do this, and how to, especially so close to the end of the fiscal year.
That's really the reason we're doing this, is because it's coming to the end of the fiscal year and we're not
we haven't seen any reimbursement checks yet from Irene. We have an approval. We're going to get about $65,000 to $70,000 for Irene. And then we're going to get somewhere around $300,000 or $400,000 for the Halloween store. So since we're coming to the end of the fiscal year, lots of departments that were involved in both of those emergencies had a drain on their funds, and we would have to be doing transfers to those to cover them, so their deficits. So instead of doing that, because this is so widespread across the state, the Department of Revenue and our own independent auditor, Tom Scanlon, suggested that we would set up a grant account for Irene and a grant account for the Halloween storm. And what we're doing is moving the expenses that the departments incurred out of their respective departmental budgets into these two grant accounts. So these two grant accounts will be in deficit on June 30th, most likely, unless we get a check between now and June 30th. So this is the first step in allowing us to deficit spend. It's identical to the snow and ice order that you vote every year, but that's actually under a different section. That's section 31D. So this just allows us to deficit spend, and this way it doesn't penalize us in our free cash when we have a deficit account.
And then the only other thing, just before you answer that, and the other thing is it actually will allow us to actually start some of this work. If, for example, Mains Field, which has been out of commission and we haven't been able to allow people to play softball this year, we've been waiting to see if the money's going to come, and this will also allow us to start that work and be able to do it and not have to wait for all these checks to be issued. Council.
You're saying these funds have been approved by FEMA, they just haven't cut the check yet? I mean, what assurance do we have that we're actually going to realize these monies?
Hurricane Irene, we have the actual approved project forms, and that is the one that's about $65,000. The storm, the Halloween storm, there's a number of what they call project approval forms, and we've actually gotten one check. It's strange, we got one check for about $50,000 for the Halloween storm, but we haven't gotten any checks yet for Irene. So some of the other project forms are still going through the approval process, so we don't know exactly how much we're going to get. But we're going to, before we start moving the money into these grants, we're going to be doing it per the approval forms. And the approval forms are the exact amount that we're going to get.
So that's the amount that you're prepared to deficit spend?
That's the only amount I'm moving, and there's what they approve, and then we only get reimbursed 75%. So we're only moving the 75%. So the departments will absorb the other 25.
What's the grand total again from Halloween? I just didn't catch it.
We don't have a grand total yet, but it's estimated to be somewhere between $300,000 or $400,000.
Okay, that's what I got that. Okay.
We had to have multiple meetings with FEMA and MEMA and go through their procedures and collect all the data and all the pay charts and everything and submit that. And we've been going back and forth with them about what's approved and what's not approved. And so we're just waiting for the final approvals. And you may want to explain just what, for people at home, what you meant by how it would impact our free cash certification, just what that, and the reason why they're recommending this.
Right. If any accounts in the city end in deficit on June 30th, when our free cash is certified by the state, they take into account all our liabilities. So they look at our taxes that haven't been collected, they look at any grants that might be in the red, any other accounts. So that takes off of our free cash. So if our free cash is going to be $1 million and we've got deficits of, 200,000, our free cash is only going to be 800. So it hinders our ability to do what we need to do in the next fiscal year. So by doing these two, we're allowed to deficit spend. We may be bringing orders forward that give us authorization to borrow as well. We're not going to need to borrow, but that's what the DOR was recommending. And I'm waiting to talk to our independent auditor, who's on vacation this week, to find out if we're going to need to do that as well. But, we were able to absorb a lot of the costs within our budget, I think primarily because it didn't snow again the rest of the winter. So that's really what saved us.
That's true.
Because even 25% of this is a significant cost.
Thank you. Okay, so.
So just one quick question. You mentioned grant funds or our grant account. Is that what the Chapter 44, Section 31 is? Because it doesn't say in here what kind of account we're establishing.
It just allows us to deficit spend.
Oh, okay, so it just creates
Right.
it turns whatever expenditure, whatever line that account is into an account that can deficit spend. Is that
Right.
am I sort of categorizing it right?
Right.
Okay.
And this is actually a format that was given to us by the DOR. I mean, the DOR issued a memo back during the Irene, and they gave formats for how towns should do this and for how cities should do this. So and again, I think because it affected so many cities and towns, and I was on a conference call with the DOR, and you know, this is a little bit of new territory because we're not used to having so many emergency declarations in Massachusetts.
Right.
Other parts of the country have a lot more experience, but suddenly we're finding ourselves doing many more, so.
Right. And typically what happens when we've had snowstorm events that we've gotten FEMA reimbursement for, if the check comes in before the end of the fiscal year, that money just goes back into the accounts that were used. And then if the check comes in after the fiscal year, which happened this year, in the summer last year, we got a check for a snowstorm like a year before that, and that just goes into miscellaneous revenue. So this is a little different, but they know that communities are really strapped, and so they're trying to work with us.
Any other questions about this? So this is on the first one related to Irene, and then we can do I can read you the second one. So, so all those in favor of recommending this order to the City Council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And the second order, similarly, upon recommendation of the Mayor and Finance Committee, ordered that whereas on October 29th, 2011, the city activated its Emergency Operations Center in response to warnings of early severe winter snowstorm, and whereas on October 30th, 2011, the mayor declared a state of emergency, I should probably say acting mayor, declared a state of emergency due to snowfall and damage caused by the early severe winter snowstorm that caused massive tree damage and widespread power outages, and whereas a regional emergency shelter was established at Smith Vocational Agricultural School to assist those impacted by the storm, whereas the city will incur liabilities in excess of the appropriations made for several city departments, therefore, pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 31 of the Massachusetts General Laws, the Northampton City Council approves the expenditure of funds for the purpose of responding to and remediating the effects related to this early severe October winter snowstorm in excess of the funds appropriated for such purposes in fiscal year 12.
Move approval.
Second
Is
it.
there a second? Okay, again, this is a sort of the carbon copy of the first one. And these funds will be segregated by the different storm events. And then the only other question is, this, we're not gonna need two readings on this. Or what was your,
If we could do 2 readings tonight, it would be good, because I know the Parks and Rec want to get going on Mains Field and Musanti Beach.
okay, for again, for the softball and for summer rec. So that's just an FYI so all those in favor then of adopting this in Finance Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so these will come out to the full council. Okay, so, let's see, in terms of financial updates, on FY 2012, we have a handout we can give you, I think, do we have?
It's on 13.
You're right, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I'm mixing the two together. So in terms of update on 2012, do you want to give any,
I'm working on looking at all of our payrolls. There's 4 payrolls left, so I'm identifying any departments that might need a transfer, and I've asked all the department heads to let me know to if they think they're going to have any overages in their operations and maintenance budgets. So, again, the mild winter is really been a good thing for us, because we're not going to see the huge transfers. And we've already done the veterans transfer, and I'm not thinking that we're going to need another one. So we're looking pretty good to close out the year.
okay, So that's the FY12. So the FY13 budget update, the Senate Ways and Means Committee did release its version of the budget a couple of days ago. I think you, and I know I received an email from Senator Rosenberg just about that, and we're going to sort of pass out the updated assessment sheet that we got from the state on that. And essentially, as you can see, if you read across, you've got, the FY11 final cherry sheet, FY12 final cherry sheet, then FY13 was the governor's budget released on the 25th of January. The 18th of April was the House Ways and Means Committee budget. That's the one that we've based our budget numbers on. And then you'll see that on May 17th, the Senate Ways and Means Committee released its budget. And the far right column is essentially the change between, or the difference between the Senate and the budget that I presented, which was essentially based on the House numbers. So you'll see, for example, Chapter 70, they kept the same increase that the House gave over and above the budget. For some reason, we're getting an additional $40. So we are assuming, since they were getting $40 per student, they must have calculated one more student. So there's an extra $40. You'll notice, unfortunately, the charter school reimbursement, we will lose $459 extra dollars under charter school reimbursement. Under unrestricted general governmental aid, you'll see a slight uptick of $4,216. And when I was reading the press release from MMA, I think the way it was described is they had, the number that the House had put back in was like $36,800, and I think the Senate had rounded it up to the next $200,000 or something and made it an even 38 or something. So that's why when they then distributed it all around, we got this additional, at least this is the proposed. So you'll see then moving down again, there's an additional assessment, unfortunately, which means we will have to pay $5,000 extra in the school choice sending tuition if the Senate's budget prevails. So the difference between the House and Senate budget is we essentially would lose $1,203 in aid versus what the House had proposed. So again, this now a conference, well, the Senate will have to have its debate on it next week. They'll vote on it. A conference will be appointed between the two bodies, and they will then deliberate and ultimately send something to the governor for his signature. So that's sort of the update. Obviously, no new breaking increases in anything, nothing really earth-shattering relative to what the House had done. And I doubt there'll be much change when the final product is released. So this is certainly, sort of within the margin of what we have in our budget. So we'll continue to watch it. Obviously, if things change or if we get other word out of the conference committee between now and when the council has to take its votes on this, we'll keep you apprised. So that's the news on the FY13 budget. Okay, so did you have anything to add to that? Or okay, great. So that's all of the scheduled business and finance. Is there any new business? Don't believe we have any, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee.
Move to adjourn?
Second it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And we will now return to the regular City Council meeting. And we have two sets of meeting minutes for your acceptance. The first is the Committee on Public Safety minutes of April 2nd, 2012, and the Committee on Cultural and Recreation Services minutes of April 2nd, 2012.
Move to approve.
Second, okay. Any questions or comments about those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so those are accepted. We've already done the presentation, so we will then move on to a street discontinuance. And we have before you a street discontinuance, and this is Turkey Hill Road, a portion of, and this was recommended by the Planning Board on March 8th, 2012, and it was recommended by the Board of Public Works on May 10th, 2012. And you have in your packet the information from the discontinuance hearing that was held by the Board of Public Works on April 25th, 2012, with a summary, and then that provides you the details of that required public hearing. So is there a motion, first of all, to approve the street discontinuance?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there discussion? Counselor?
I'd like to talk about the discontinuance on Turkey Hill Road. We did have a hearing being held April 25th at 4:30 PM. And Ned Huntley, Jim Dostal, several people there, in regards of full support of discontinuing Turkey Hill Road at one section on that site. For years, we have had problems with all-terrain vehicles nonstop. Just like another part of my ward, we're having problems right now with the all-terrain vehicles. It has gotten so bad that the conservation land that we had worked so hard at raising $264,000 to acquire the quarry is really getting to the point where they're making a mess out of the conservation area. We're running into serious problems now of once they are into the site, they are actually setting bonfires. And, you know, the police department has better things to do than constantly getting calls of what's occurring at this site. By closing this, by doing the discontinuance, we're looking at, and there is money through conservation on this, of placing a gate which will really protect this conservation land. Also, I do have a unit of condominiums around there. I do have small children around the site. And a lot of people really have stressed about something being done. So I would like to also recognize Sarah LaValle in regards to Turkey Hill Road.
Is there
Well, she's already recognized, so.
Sure, she was recognized by the Finance Committee. That's, we'll recognize that recognition.
Is she the same person?
No ideas required.
I have a different hat on.
Uh-oh.
So this discontinuance will allow the prohibition of motorized vehicles, which Councilor Labarge mentioned, are a really significant issue in that part of the Mineral Hills Conservation Area. They use the road, which they're allowed to use, as an unfortunate entry point to the conservation area for four-wheeling and access for parties and all kinds of things that aren't supposed to be occurring there. With an acquisition in February, the Conservation Commission now owns all the adjoining parcels, so this won't cause damage to any abutters, and we won't have to issue payments as we usually would have to. West Hampton already discontinued their portion of Turkey Hill Road several years ago when a lot of the adjoining parcels in that community became protected. And this will also allow the commission to restore a degraded stream crossing and will eliminate any DPW responsibility to repair or maintain the road, which has some real significant erosion issues.
Councilor Dwight.
Can you just address I noticed the note here that former Councilor Dossel had mentioned that approximately $2,000 each year in Chapter 90 funds will be lost as a result of the discontinuance. Personally, based on the face of it, I think that's a reasonable swap, because any money that goes to dedicated to maintaining a road that we don't maintain might not be the best. But I understand that if it's included in the inventory, it accounts for $2,000 more in Chapter 90 funds than any. And I'd imagine his suggestions, any additional whacks to the Chapter 90 funds are painful. So, and plus there's the associated costs with building the gate establishing, securing the end of that end of the road. So can you speak to those points?
Sure. The $2,000 loss is an unfortunate result of the Chapter 90 calculation, and that will come off of our Chapter 90 award each year. However, any repairs or work that DPW would have to do to the road to make it up to standards for even a dirt road would cost more than $2,000. And the gate or boulders or blocking off the road in some manner was included in the budget for the Mineral Hills Bookends project, which was the Conservation Commission's big acquisition last year.
Thank you.
Counselor Murphy?
And I think there's any number of private ways that we, by default, have been maintaining for years that we could take if we really wanted to jack our road mileage back up again.
Well, that's true. Any street acceptance
You've got it.
would add to the inventory and add to Chapter 90 funds and roads that we've already been maintaining anyway. Good point.
Are there any other comments about this street discontinuance or questions? Okay. Hearing none, I would call the question, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you again, sir.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is a financial order, and this requires the acquisition of an easement from Mass Electric for 2 access ramps to Manhan, New Haven, and
I move we postpone.
Let's postpone.
thank you. I was hoping someone would do that before I started reading it. So there's been a motion made to postpone this until the September 6th meeting. Was that
Sure, good idea, yes.
So the motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so this will come back to you in September.
See you in September.
Okay. The next order is the financial order, and I will, with the council's indulgence, I may just read the now therefore be it ordered.
Yes.
So this is again upon the recommendation of the mayor and the Community Preservation Committee. Now therefore be it ordered that $104,000 be appropriated from Community Preservation Act funding to the Office of Planning and Development for the Beaver Brook Bridge project. Say that fast. That the grantee meets the conditions approved by the Community Preservation Committee, the mayor, and city council. Specifically, $94,650 is appropriated from the CPA budget reserve, and $9,350 is appropriated from the CPA historical budgeted reserve.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on this one on first reading? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The next is again upon the recommendation of the mayor and the Community Preservation Committee. Now therefore be it ordered that $290,000 be appropriated from Community Preservation Act funding to the Northampton Conservation Commission for the Broad Brook Gap project, and that the grantee meets the conditions approved by the Community Preservation Committee, the mayor, and city council. Specifically, $290,000 is appropriated from the CPA budget reserve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, this will come back to you on second reading. Again, upon the recommendation of the mayor and the Community Preservation Commission, now therefore be it ordered that $50,000 be appropriated from Community Preservation Act funding to the Northampton Conservation Fund, and that the grantee meets the conditions approved by the Community Preservation Committee, the mayor, and the city council. Specifically, $50,000 is appropriated from the CPA budgeted reserve. Is there a motion made?
So move.
Second.
Second? Any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And the final, upon the recommendation of Mayor David Narkowitz and the Community Preservation Committee, now therefore be it ordered that $100,000 be appropriated from Community Preservation Act funding to the Northampton Conservation Commission for the Hampshire County Courthouse renovation, and that the grantee meets the conditions approved by the Community Preservation Committee, the mayor, and the city council. Specifically, $100,000 is appropriated from the CPA budget reserve, and that the city of Northampton is authorized to acquire for conservation, passive recreation, and historic preservation purposes any easement and any conservation and/or historic preservation restriction as defined by Mass General Law, Chapter 184, Section 31 of the General Laws in the historic courthouse and/or courthouse lawn, consistent with the Community Preservation Act, and that City Council approves such easements and conservation and historic preservation restrictions.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilor Freeman Daniels.
I just wanted to say that I'm very encouraged to see that other communities are also chipping in for this, particularly Goshen. But I also want to really see how big the conservation restriction on the lawn might be. So I'm going to vote aye, but at second reading, I really would like to see the intent of the conservation restriction on the lawn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So this will come back to you on second reading. The next order is requires a suspension of rules as a late file. This is the Hurricane Irene matter that we discussed in finance.
Move to suspend rules.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Again, this is upon the recommendation of the mayor and the finance committee, ordered that, and again, I can read would you like me to read the entire thing or the enacting clause? So pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 31 of the Mass General Laws, the Northampton City Council approves the expenditure of funds for the purpose of protecting the city and making repairs during and after Tropical Storm Irene in excess of the funds appropriated for such purposes in FY12.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. And this requires a 2/3 vote to adopt, so I just want to let you know that. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so a 2/3 majority has been.
And I'm sorry, I don't know if it's appropriate to have a roll call for a deficit spend authorization.
We can certainly do that, so let's have the clerk call the roll, just for the record.
Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Dwight?
Yes.
Counselor Freeman Daniels?
Aye.
Counselor LaBarge?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy?
Yes.
Counselor Spector?
Yes.
Counselor Schwartz? Yes.
Okay. Then I guess the question would be, would the council be willing to suspend rules and do 2 readings on this?
Move to suspend rules.
Second it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so
Move
then,
approval.
Second.
okay, so motion's been made and seconded on second reading, and I'll ask the clerk.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
It was a surprise to me that it's a financial order that doesn't have any dollars in it, by the way. That's just because you haven't compiled them all yet. Is that right?
Well, normally when you're in an emergency situation and you're deficit spending, you just authorize the deficit spending. Like when you do the snow and ice, you just authorize deficit spending. So there's not usually a number in it at this point.
Right, but we already, I mean, this was August of 2011 that this happened, so shouldn't we have the numbers at this point?
The problem is we don't have the check.
Right, okay, well, yeah, I'm just,
I mean,
Which is-
we
it's just
do
rare.
have a total, we do have a total for Hurricane Irene,
uh-huh.
so
All
we
right.
just don't have it here.
Would it be possible to get a memo laying out the costs associated with, and the FEMA application and the MEMA applications, just so that we have an idea of what dollar amounts that we're talking about?
Definitely. Okay,
But to that, I mean, the money spent, we're just getting our reimbursement. It's
Right.
not going to match because it's 75%. So we're just facilitating not costing us free cash to get out of this year. So to some extent, it's not all that relevant.
Yeah.
If I could
that's-
clarify. With Hurricane Irene, that one is completely done. All the project approvals are made. We know exactly dollar for dollar what we're getting. There's 3 projects under that have, most of the money was for expenses that were incurred during the event. There's 3 projects that are that we have been waiting for the money. That's Mainsfield, New Santee Beach, and Channel Markers. So those are not projects that we've spent the money, but each department head knows exactly
what
how
they're
much
spending,
they have,
yeah.
and they're not to go over it, so.
I'm not trying to hold it up. I'm just saying that it's rare.
To not have
Yeah,
firm numbers.
to see the number after the event has happened. But, yeah, I understand that all we're doing here is protecting the free cash certification, and I think that's a good thing. So it's rare not to see the numbers on the.
Yeah. Unfortunately, these emergencies are becoming less and less rare, so, yeah. Okay, so on second reading, there was a motion made and seconded.
Yeah.
Do you have another comment, Counselor? Okay, so I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on second
Counselor
reading.
Dwight?
Yes.
Counselor Freeman Daniel?
Aye.
Counselor Labarge?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy?
Yes.
Counselor Spector?
Yes.
Counselor Schwartz? Yes. Counselor Adams?
Aye.
Okay, so that's adopted on two readings tonight. So the second order is again upon the recommendation of the Mayor and Finance Committee, and this is again ordered that pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 31 of the Massachusetts General Laws, the I need to ask for suspension of the rules file.
Yeah, suspend Rule 38.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so rules are suspended. So now this is ordered that pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 31 of the Massachusetts General Laws, the Northampton City Council approves the expenditure of funds for the purposes of responding to and remediating the effects related to the early severe October-winter snowstorm in excess of the funds appropriated for such purposes in fiscal year 12. Is there a motion?
Move to
on first
approve.
reading?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion about this one? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on first reading.
Counselor Freeman Daniel?
Aye.
Counselor Labarge?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy?
Yes.
Counselor Spector?
Yes.
Counselor Schwartz? Yes. Counselor Adams?
Yes.
Counselor Dwight?
Yes.
Okay, so that's adopted with 2/3. And then again, I would ask
Move to
suspension.
suspend rules.
Suspend Rule.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to suspend Rule 14. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I would now entertain a motion on second reading.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second it?
Okay.
There you go.
Any discussion on this one on second reading? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Labarge?
Yes.
Counselor Murphy?
Yes.
Counselor Spector?
Yes.
Counselor Schwartz? Yes. Counselor Adams?
Aye.
Counselor Dwight?
Yes.
Counselor Freeman Daniel?
Aye.
Okay, so that again passes on unanimously with unanimous and required 2/3 on second reading. And so thank you very much for that. And I know that the rec department will be excited to get started on Santee Beach and Mains Field. The next is, okay, this is second reading. This is upon the recommendation of the Mayor and the Finance Committee. Ordered that whereas the Northampton Energy and Sustainability Commission, NESC, through administering energy policy in the Sustainable Northampton Plan and the city's climate change protection commitments, has and will continue to identify and secure significant revenue from renewable energy certificates, and the NESC continues to champion increased levels of energy efficiency and energy resource sustainability and guard against effects of energy resource disruption, depletion, and climate change throughout the city. And whereas the City Council, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, may authorize the establishment of a revolving fund for the Northampton Energy and Sustainability Commission for such revenue generated by city energy improvements, now therefore be it ordered that the City Council hereby authorizes an Energy and Sustainability Revolving Fund in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half for fiscal year 2012. Receipts received but not expended in fiscal year 2012 shall be carried over to fiscal year 2013 if this fund is reauthorized for fiscal year 2013 by City Council. Said receipts will include payments from the sale of renewable energy certificates and renewable energy or greenhouse gas, e.g. carbon credits or other emission credits, and utility rebate payments, requests for which will be presented to the NESC and to the mayor for approval on a project-by-project basis. Receipts may also include gifts from individuals and organizations. expenditures may be made to pay materials, expenses, and contracted services associated with projects, programs, and policies that increase levels of energy efficiency and energy resource sustainability and guard against effects of energy resource disruption, depletion, and climate change in all of Northampton's public and private sectors, e.g. municipal, business, commercial, residential, agricultural, and institutional, consistent with the goals of the Sustainable Northampton Plan, the city's climate change protection commitments, and other city plans and goals. The Director of Central Services, with the approval of the NESC and Mayor, shall be authorized to expend from the fund for the stated purposes. No further appropriation shall be required, provided, however, that no expenditure shall be made in excess of the balance of the fund, nor shall total expenditures for the fiscal year exceed the sum of $75,000. A detailed report of all expenditures will be prepared by the Director of Central Services or the Director's designee and will be presented to City Council at the conclusion of each fiscal year. And again, this is as amended by you, by the City Council on May 3rd, 2012.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, and there's a second. So this is again before you as amended in second reading. Is there any further questions about this one? Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The next item before you is on second reading. This is a transfer of, upon the recommendation of the mayor and the finance committee, order that the sum of $115,887 be and hereby is transferred from the receipts reserved account for ambulance fees to the following accounts. And so to the EMS regular salaries PS account, $75,000, to the EMS overtime PS account, $10,000, to the EMS weekend differential account, PS $650, to the EMS holiday pay PS account, $4,000, to the EMS third-party billing OM account, $7,500, to the EMS supplies O&M account, $10,000, to the EMS training and seminars account, O&M, $3,000, to the EMS equipment O&M account, $5,000, to the EMS office supplies O&M account, $300, and to the EMS medical expenses O&M account, $437.
Move to approve.
Second. Okay. So there's been a motion made and seconded. Again, this is on second reading, and again, this will be the final transfer from the receipts reserved account for ambulance fees that the council will make. Any questions about that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's approved on second reading. Okay, so now have this is a late file ordinance, and this is would be introduced as a late file for purposes of referral. So I would ask for a suspension of Rule 38.
Move to suspend.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and this is on the recommendation of the Transportation and Parking Commission, and it is a amendment to Section 312-103, no parking certain times for Ridgewood Terrace, and this would be referred to the
Ordinance.
Committee on Elections, Rules, Ordinances, Orders, and Claims. So is there a motion?
To refer?
Okay,
Second.
second. Any discussion about Counselor?
I just, as a member of the Transportation Parking Commission, I apologize for making this a late file. I think there might have been a little miscommunication between the TPC and the Ordinance Committee, but regardless, we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen again. So again, I'm sorry, but this is part and parcel with the work that the TPC did for the other Ridgewood Terrace ordinance, which the council approved earlier this year. So I think we meant to have everything come together as a package, but it just didn't happen. So this is the last piece.
Okay. So all those in favor of referring this to the Ordinance Committee, say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, so I believe that completes your orders. Are there any updates from the council president and committee chairs?
I would say please take note, a letter from Senator John Kerry noting that he is in receipt of our resolution and in fact actually endorses the things that we asked relative to the Constitution to amend to mitigate the impacts of Citizens United, so that, and I'd call your attention to that if you haven't noticed. Also, maybe we should have an update on the charter, and actually I would defer to the mayor. The mayor and the city solicitor have acted on some of the proposed amendments.
I believe I hope a memo was sent out to the council today from me, and I guess I wanted to just update you. The committee on, I believe it's called the Committee on Municipalities and Regional Government, held a hearing a couple of weeks ago. We did prepare testimony that I submitted, which was essentially sort of a summary of what the community had done through its process and what the council had adopted. And we submitted that. We also, Mr. McGoldrick from the Collins Center, who had been the city's consultant, also attended the hearing. Apparently, it was about a 5-minute hearing, and they took the measure into consideration. In the interim, the lawyers with the Elections Division of the Secretary of State did a review of the document and identified several issues, technical issues that needed that they requested corrections on. Similarly, the House Council did its own analysis, and it found a couple of technical corrections that it wanted corrected. And so those were then given to Representative Cocott, who had been the introducer of the legislation, and he sent them to me. The city solicitor reviewed them with Mr. McGoldrick, and we came up with some slight revisions to accommodate the requests from the Elections Division and from the House Council. And I have submitted those to Representative Cocott, and under the resolution that you adopted, you gave me the authority, if there were technical, non-substantive changes that needed to be made, I could approve them to prevent us from having to bring them back to the city council. So for example, there was one, just as an example, we had set a deadline that signature papers had to be in by 4 p.m. Well, state law is 5 p.m. So we were not allowed to set a time that superseded state law. So we had to change that to 5 p.m. And there were a couple of other areas where we had done something in one section and we hadn't done something corresponding in another section, so we had to match it up. And then they didn't like the format of how we had our discontinued special acts, and so they wanted us to reformat it to fit a more standardized format. So there were no substantive changes. They expect this to be reported. I think it was reported out. It goes the Senate, I believe. It's been already transmitted to State Senator Rosenberg, and then we're hopeful that it will come to the floor for a full vote, and hopefully the governor will sign it, and then it goes to the Secretary of State for them to figure out the process for putting it on the state ballot for this November.
And I would add to that, one of the conditional changes that they asked for was the way language is drafted for petition questions. They, as opposed to leaving it up to the petitioners, that the language, in fact, I think this is by MGL standards, that has to be established by, I believe, the city solicitor is the agent that will craft the language for the question petition, so that I guess providing some form of non-biased language or something, or at least something that's it meets the sniff test by state standards. So
yeah, and I think that was one that came to us from the Elections Division of the Secretary of State.
So everyone's had a bite of the apple at this point.
So that, yes, it's been completely vetted by all the various lawyers at the different agencies, and these were the 4 areas that they had concerns on. So these amendments will be adopted, the whole thing will hopefully be adopted, and then we'll move on from there. So that's the update, and this memorandum has been sent out today to folks that outlines all of it. So.
concludes my announcements, I believe, unless Mary knows otherwise, but, okay.
Okay. Okay, so any new business? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the meeting is adjourned.